Welcome to Road to Recovery Webinar 2. In this Law Society webinar, Mary Clunan and Justin Purcell talk about marketing your practice post-COVID-19.
You're very welcome, everyone, to the call. And so we're Road to Recovery Webinar 2. It's a new landscape. Away you go, Mary.
Thanks a million, Justin. Thanks, Justin, and thanks to Law Society for inviting me along to this. I'm delighted to participate. Today we're going to talk about kind of marketing in the post-COVID world. And I'm going to just jump straight into it because everyone's time is precious on this call. So I suppose really before we start into it, I'm really going to just talk about the new landscape that we have here at the moment. And our new landscape has just changed so dramatically in the last number of months. Best laid plans laid out in January are now, really need to be really considered carefully. So I suppose the landscape, when I say to you, think about the three considerations for your landscape, I would say to you, really now it's a virtual world. Like gone are the days where we went to events and we were able to engage with each other and have chats afterwards and have questions and all that kind of good stuff. So it is a virtual world now. And unless you're operating in a virtual world, just be careful you're not silent. So it's really, really important to have a good virtual presence, which we'll talk about today. So trust and confidence has been badly shaken. If you think about it, I know like lots of practitioners' confidence has been shaken after the last just horrible couple of months. And the confidence is really, really shaken. And don't forget that your target audience is in exactly the same boat as yourselves. Their trust and their confidence is really, really shaken too. So you really need to be bearing that in mind when we're doing any kind of marketing or communicating out in general. And like it always did, but every euro counts. It always has counted, but now more so than ever, as these euros are scarcer, every single euro counts. So just again, from your client's perspective, from your perspective, make sure you're investing wisely and making sure your clients are encouraged to invest or engage with you from a wise perspective as well. We'll fire on to the next slide there, Justin, if that's okay.
So just to make a point here, if anyone wants to launch any questions, if they could put them up on the chat, we'd be delighted. And we're actually just going to launch a poll now around some of the challenges that you're facing. So if you could participate in that, that'd be great. And I'll move the slide forward now. So there you go, Mary.
I really encourage everybody to participate in the poll. It's really just good to get a sense of a test of the market, a test of the landscape.
So Mary, can you see that then, the next slide, traditional versus virtual?
We might just move it very slightly one way or the other, left or right, I don't mind.
Is the poll in the way? Is it? I
Yeah.
can't actually see the poll.
The poll is in the way.
Okay, 1 second. Is it away?
Not yet, but I'll start anyway, don't worry. We
Okay,
can
is it away?
No.
I think I'll have to end the poll, I think,
Yeah. We'll give people another minute or so to do it. It was really, my point around this slide is like the world has really, really turned. I suppose while traditionally we were operating from a face-to-face point of view, and that is no longer the case. We're virtual and here we are now looking out at our screens. I suppose really it's local really what might have been our focus up to date. That's no longer the case either. Service, we would be thinking about kind of developing more service for more clients. I'm just going to see, can I minimize this poll? I can. While we were thinking about kind of more service for clients, that's not the case anymore. And I suppose really hourly billing would have been a way a lot of practitioners would have focused in the marketplace. So in a virtual world, it's very, very different. I suppose, obviously as I mentioned, little face-to-face. So the local has moved into more kind of regional or potentially global. Like, we can obviously see firms coming into the market here as well. And I think that's something we need to thinking about for the future as well. So it has, when a move into virtual also means a move into more competition. And I suppose competition can leave it harder for us to differentiate ourselves in the marketplace. So that's why when we think about specializing in expert focus is often a wise way for firms to try and build their expertise out in a particular space and own that space as much as they possibly can. I suppose the other trend that I'm seeing in the marketplace at the moment too is like there is starting to be a move towards hybrid pricing rather than hourly pricing. I might keep moving, Justin, if that's okay, if we go on to the next slide.
Sure, and presumably, Mary, there's an opportunity here as well as a challenge.
There is
this new dynamic.
I suppose it really comes back down to whether people have the appetite to face into what the challenge is, and I definitely think there's going to be an opportunity. Like any of us that are old enough to remember the previous recession in 2007, 2008, will know that it got very competitive at that particular point in time. And we had competitors eating into markets that they wouldn't traditionally have been in. So I think that's something we can anticipate again over the coming months, unfortunately. But that also, as you say, Justin, presents an opportunity. So I'd encourage people, like, it is very doable. We've seen firms come from nowhere in short periods of time. So I think it's very, very doable. I'm going to just touch on this, but I'm not going to spend too much time on it. And I'd really say to you, think about your firm and think about it in terms of clients, and think about it in your own existing clients, and think about it with regard to attracting prospects. And I would say to you, really think carefully about doing a marketing audit, and think about how you look to your target market. And it's not about how this kitten sees in the mirror. It's about the overall, it's about what your client sees when they look at you. So it's very, very important to stand back and look at your firm from that perspective. And it can be a difficult thing to do, because no more than when we're writing something, we write what we think we wrote, and we read what we think we wrote rather than what we actually wrote. So cold eyes is very useful for you in this, and to get kind of some feedback from external sources as to how your practice looks within the marketplace. Can be challenging to do that in-house. So I really encourage people to think about that, and to really think about it from stand in the shoes of your target audience and look back, as I'd say.
So Mary, just a question around that. Who's like we used to talk about the mom test. Like if you asked your mom something about something, she was always going to give you like the most positive things forward, or about your business or whatever. So who else could you ask beyond the mom test? Because you don't want to be here and think,
No, well, the real way to go about this is to talk to a brand agency, an identity and a brand agency, and there's lots of them around the place. Not just a marketing agency now. A brand and marketing is a very, very kind of distinct space. So there's a number of agencies around the place that do this. So, and it's no harm to engage with them and have a chat with them. It might be not as expensive as you would anticipate, but this is really important to get this right. The other, if you don't want to go to kind of the extent of going formally, you could actually ask somebody to do a marketing audit for you. Lots of marketing consultants will do a marketing audit for you in the morning. So that's not a huge, big job to be done really overall. And I think when you're looking at this, when you're asking somebody to look at them, ask them to look, not really talk to you, to be perfectly honest, to look at your virtual presence, look at your social media presence, your online presence in the form of your website, any content that you have out there that you might have gotten press coverage from. So if I Googled you in the morning, what would I find? And what would that leave me with? So I think that's kind of the route to go, Justin, in my experience.
Yeah, one of the questions there is marketing audit a checklist?
It is to some degree, but I think it's very much dependent on who your target audience is. So if your target audience is a tech company, or if it's a med-neg potential opportunity, they're very different target markets. So there is an audit list you could create, absolutely, but it is very dependent on who your target audience is, because they'll have different values and different kind of values associated with the services that are offering to them. I had a good example years ago. I remember I was working with a client, and they were very, very focused on the tech space. But again, it wasn't like one of the large firms you'd walk into. It was a very casual, relaxed polo shirt, chino environment back then, because they were positioning themselves for their own target audience. So it is very much dependent on who you're trying to attract.
Okay, thanks, Mary.
Good
We'll
stuff.
move on to the next slide.
Great. Now, I suppose really, we talked earlier on about it being a virtual world. And I suppose if you think about the virtual world, I would encourage you to test yourselves. If you put your own firm name, practice name, your own individual name into Google right now, what would you find? And bear in mind that when you're doing this, you need to clear your history, because if you've gone into your own website before, or your own LinkedIn profile before, that will be influenced by your search history. So clear your search history and do your search, and really think about how your clients are finding you. So at the moment, if you think about kind of, these are the 5 core elements that tend to pop up first and foremost when somebody is searching for a solicitor or a practitioner in your space. And what I'd say to you is, think about your website, and think about if your website is excellent. And do you know what? It really, really has to be excellent right now, because this is usually the first and foremost point a potential prospect will see. And for a website to be excellent, like Google has changed the algorithms around search engine optimization, which is my next point, quite recently, but your website is corely critical for that. So I would say to you, is it customized for you, for your target audience? Speed of website is critically important. So where the website is residing from a server point of view is really important. Making sure that your website is created for mobile first So I see a number of websites out there in the marketplace at the moment that are mobile adaptable rather than created for mobile first. And like, it's an issue from Google's point of view. So it really does want websites that are created for mobile first. There is, if you're not sure about this, just pull your screen in. If you like, if you're on a tablet, just pull your screen or look at it on your phone and see, is your menu collapsing down, and is it easy to read? Is it easy to navigate? Is it pushing images back so that it's quicker when it's on mobile? So just have a really, really good look at that. On websites, kind of overall, it's really, really important that you do regular updates. Like Google is the platform vast majority of your prospects are going to use to search for you. So it wants you to use the Google tools that I'm going to talk about in a minute, but it also wants you to do website updates very, very regularly. And I suppose to accommodate that in the most efficient way that I see, from a firm or a practice's point of view, is to make sure that you have a website that's a CMS website, which means that you can maintain that website yourself and make changes in-house, that you don't have to go back to your provider on an ongoing basis. And that's really, really important. Like, video is just trending so high at the moment when it comes to professional services and overall the B2B world. I notice myself when I put up a social media post, video, or put a video on my website, it just gets such traction. So there's lots of tools that you can use that we're going to go through in more detail now next week when we talk digital marketing in huge depth. But there's a lot of tools out there that you can use. So don't think it's the camera crew arriving in straight away. Like, on your website overall, I would say to you, like, there is a lot of practitioners, particularly singular practitioners out there in the market at the moment that don't have a website. And it can be daunting to think about where to go and how to start. And what I'd say to you is, when I started my own business about 6 years ago, I started with a Wix website, which was an online platform available. I can't remember whether it was free or it could have been $5 a month, but it was a very, very low cost platform. And I was 2 years on that platform before I was confident enough to go for a WordPress website, which I kind of built up myself as well. And only in the last year have I moved to a Storyblock website, which is a more robust platform that I find for my target audience. So what I'd say to you is, find something that suits you and suits your budget and suits your ambition for the moment. But definitely you have to have a website presence. Ideally, I would say to you, and I'll talk about it later, try not to do all this stuff yourself. It's, you guys have worked very, very hard and studied for a very long time to build up your expertise. Starting to do a website, you will find, I suspect, quite time consuming. So work with experts externally to kind of help you get these building blocks in place for your practice to give you the best opportunity. SEO, I've touched on kind of briefly. Again, all I'm going to say here is really use the experts. We'll talk about in more detail next week about some of the key things that are involved in SEO, but certainly always look at SEO from your target audience's perspective. And again, I would say to you, think about how search has changed over the years. A lot of us have Google Nests or Alexas in-house, and we're used to pressing the button on our phone and talking to Siri. So how we search, so, find me a medical negligence solicitor in my area. The language we use is different. So just think about that really carefully and make sure it's crafted for your target audience in mind overall. Social media, I just think it's critically important for professional services right now. It gives you an opportunity to engage and build a community online. Like, I would always say, at a minimum, practitioners should be on LinkedIn, at their own personal profiles on LinkedIn, and good, robust profiles with lots of connections that are doing regular updates. Like, I frequently get asked to review LinkedIn profiles, and I see all kinds of everything out there. So what I'd say is good professional headshot, and really making sure that social media overall, you're doing updates regularly. If I search for you and I find you haven't done an update in the last year, you're sending me a message, and it's not necessarily a positive message. So I really think you need to make sure we're using our updates regularly and getting out there. And I suppose right from your client's point of view, no more than your website content, because you can use, if you create a piece of content, you can use it on your website, you can use it on social media. And it also brings me to my next point, your Google business listing. This is a listing that Google has, you've created on Google, which allows Google mapping to find you. But Google did an interesting trick in the last couple of months. It actually marked a lot of businesses as temporarily closed in the last number of months due to pandemic, because all offices were closed. So what I would say to you, really encourage you to make sure that you check your Google business listing is your business marked as temporary closed at the moment? And if you're operating in any shape or form at the moment, make sure you mark it open. Because again, if I'm a potential prospect of yours and I Google you and I find you're temporarily closed, that's discouraging me from making contact with you. So really think carefully about that. Just check that for today. The other kind of interesting piece around Google Business, as it has developed its platform over the number of years, it now allows businesses to post updates on your Google Business listing, which again, the more you use your Google tools that are there for us in the marketplace, the more Google likes us. So if you have a social media post, pop it up on Google Business Updates as well. You've nothing to lose for it. The other point on Google Business listing is, like, if you are really keen to develop your SEO, and again, we'll talk about it in more detail next week, but you really need to be thinking about building up the reviews of your practice on both Google Business and any of your social media platforms. So I'd really encourage you to use that. SEO, search engine optimization, really, really likes to see businesses getting lots of reviews. So if I Google if I Google a practice in the morning and I find my name and I find Justin's name, if Justin has 20 reviews and I have 2, Justin is definitely going to be ahead of me in the rankings here if all else is equal. So it's really important to build out your Google reviews. And I suppose it's not even a big ask really at times. You'll know yourself what clients that you can ask or what contacts you can ask to do a review for you. So be sensible and clever about using the tools that are there for us in the marketplace. I'm just conscious of time. Justin, am I all right?
Sure. I think you're all right for the moment. Just a quick question there on just like, where do I start? Like there's a lot of really great tools here.
Yeah.
But I've just got a basic website, and is that something that we're going to deal with next week a bit more in depth? But
yeah, we're going to do that next week. But what I will say to you is, have a good hard look at your own virtual presence in advance of next week. I would say to you, clear your history on your search tool on Google. If you're using, ideally use Google, I think. So it's clear your history and just search your name, search your practice name, and maybe put in 1 or 2 terms that you think your target audience would be searching for in order to find you. So if you're a medical negligence person, put in that term. If you're conveyancing, if you're probate, whatever your specialist area is or your industry area, pop that in and see what comes up. But definitely clear your search before. And I think, Justin, that's a really good place to start, because that'll give you a sense of reality in terms of whether you're being found or not. So don't forget also that Google will search depending on location. So you're making sure that you're using the tools that are all available to us free, like the Google mapping tools, the Google business tools, the Google reviews, all of those tools. That's really, really important to use. They're all free. We've no reason in the world not to be using them, and make sure we're using them.
Very good. So just to encourage anyone who wants to ask a question to shoot it up on chat. A quick look at the poll here. And we might just close that for the moment and then maybe launch another one in a minute or 2. But that's kind of interesting. Can you see that, Mary?
I can. Justin, sorry.
Okay. I'll just I'll close that down and end the polling on that one. And then we'll move on to so I'll just share the results with everybody there just for a second. So can you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So It's kind of interesting. That's what people are experiencing at the moment.
Very good.
The highest one there is existing business on hold, which is a good thing.
And it's funny, I've seen a similar poll in the US recently, and I think it's almost identical, Justin, to what I've seen previously. So I suppose to give you some comfort, the challenges that practitioners are having here is a global issue. So you're not alone. There's an awful lot of us in the same boat. And I wouldn't, but hopefully as businesses start opening up, we'll see that existing business piece, we'll see that starting to loosen up a little bit again, I hope. And again, business in the pipeline disappearing is also an issue we're seeing out there in the marketplace overall. So you're not alone within that. The more we can do to kind of keep, like, if it is disappearing, all the more reason to really focus on your marketing overall.
Okay, so I'm going to stop the sharing of those results. I'm going to ask one more question, so sure. We're gathering it as we go along, because we're moving into the last sort of 5 to 10 minutes of this webinar. So I'll just minimize that, and then I'll move you on. So.
I'm going to just minimize that. That's great. So listening more overall, I suppose a lot of people tend to think about marketing in professional services world is kind of pushing content out there on an ongoing basis, but it's really, really important to listen as well to your target audience. Most of you will have kind of a good portfolio of clients established already. So engaging and getting feedback from them when the time is right, and not with all clients, of course, with the right type of clients that will give you a bit of feedback. There's kind of lots of ways we can listen. We can do it informally by having a chat with the client, but we can also do kind of more formally, and there's fabulous tools that are low and no cost as well that we can use, like MailChimp and SurveyMonkey are really, really handy little tools that you can use to listen. And the more than Justin's put up a poll there to see kind of what are you experiencing. That's absolutely something we could think about. You could think about for your own practice as well in the form of a little questionnaire on potentially SurveyMonkey that you could bounce out. You could do surveys on social media as well, which kind of a useful tool as well. So I would encourage you to think about continuing to listen to the marketplace and just see what the market is telling you. And more so than ever now, because the market is going to be changing. It has changed dramatically and will continue to change, I anticipate, over the next number of months. So keep listening is what I would say.
So there's a question in there, Mary, just how do, like with existing business on hold, how do we get new business, or what sort of, without obviously physical networking being available to us?
Well, I suppose I would say to you that that's when your virtual marketing is, your digital marketing is critically important. Like there's an awful lot of practitioners in the same boat. And what I see in the marketplace is some practitioners have gone very quiet. There's just silence, no updates for a number of months on social media, website unchanged. And that is sending a message in itself. So I think it's very important to be active on social media, to get your name out there. Marketing overall is building your brand out to market. We can't go to events, unfortunately, at the moment, but you can take action online. So I think that's just would be my advice. I would really be thinking about engagement in social media. And if you have a bit of downtime, maybe now is time to really look at and see what your digital strategy is, and do you have one? Because it's really important right now.
And it's definitely something that you can take action on now. It doesn't require going to events or anything. It's just something that you can review.
And I suppose the other point of this, you can build a pipeline of posts or potential content out there. If you were to sit down yourself and build literally write a list of what are the things that my client could potentially be searching for and what's pertinent to them at the moment. A list, and literally go at it every week. When I started working with some practitioners, I would say to them, note in your diary to pop up once or twice a week to do an update on social media. Make sure you're doing it. So being consistent and focused on that is really important right now. This is very doable. But I would say,
a really good tip there from Michelle about doing something every week is the practicing solicitor logo from the Law Society, which we'll make available at the end of the session. That ensure that you put that on your website and make it available. So we'll send that out along with the slides later. So you want me to move on a slide? Yeah.
The more updates we can do, the better. So I'd say think carefully about the content, build your list and do it every week. Something at least every week. And at least you're moving forward. You'll feel better yourself that you're taking action, but you will be seen. So like marketing overall is that flag waving exercise, but making sure that you're top of mind should the need arise for your prospects. So making sure you are the top of mind. Is it within your own control to some degree here in social media?
So Mary, we're moving into sort of the last 2 or 3 minutes of the webinar. So if anyone has any questions for Mary, please send them up on the chat. We'll go back to the poll in a second, but we're just getting towards the end now. So
good stuff. I just really wanted to leave you. I've talked about some of this already, but I suppose really what I'd say to you is when you're going back to your desks this afternoon or managing to put down the sandwich or whatever we're having at the moment, I would say to you, I'm going to leave you with these 9 things. So I'd say to you is, it is a virtual world now. And like, to be honest, I think it's going to stay like that for some time. So, and the other thing is that silence is really, I think, you're never not communicating. So you remaining silent or choosing not to do something at this particular point in time is sending a message in itself. So it's very, very important to take some action and to get some movement and updates out there. When you're communicating and you're building your list of content, really think about your ideal target market. Who is your ideal client, and communicate with them? Because I often see practices challenged by seeing, and like they're trying to communicate with everybody, and then the message becomes so convoluted or vanilla that we're actually not saying anything. So pick your ideal target market, your ideal client, and craft your messages for them, because that will allow you really get deeper into what that client or prospect needs to hear from you. And the deeper, and it brings me nearly into my next point to some degree. If you can, and if you have the ability and you feel it's appropriate, An industry focus or a sector focus is really, really wise. We're seeing it, we talked about it last week. An awful lot of firms are moving this direction at the moment, and it's a trend in professional services globally. So an industry focus allows you to kind of test a market for a moment, establish a presence, and potentially, if that's successful, cut out some other areas that you've been focusing on to focus on the more lucrative and the more engaging work. And what I would say to you about an industry overall is you go narrow and you go deep. So you really, really focus on a narrow segment, because we can't be all things to all men. But you go deep within that. So it brings me back to my point ahead. Pick your ideal client, communicate about the issues and concerns and potential problems they could have. So go narrow and go deep, and it's really, really important. We talked about kind of internal resources. Like, I would see a lot of firms without marketing resources, unfortunately. So I would say at the moment, it's critically important to have an in-house digital resource or somebody willing to skill up from a digital point of view. And if you don't have that in-house, you really need to think about going external, and there's plenty of experts out there in the marketplace, but you've worked long and hard to get to where you are as practitioners, as solicitors. So it's not a skill that you would usually have, to be perfectly honest, but don't have your practice kind of at a negative because you don't have that skill, because all we're really trying to do is portray your expertise and reach your target market. So use the external skills if you don't have it in-house. I mentioned earlier on, video is just trending so far up, it's incredible. I'm really surprised by it myself in the last number of months. There's clever little tools that we're going to talk about in detail next week, but I'm going to mention one now called Lumen 5, which is a little tool that you can use to create kind of a little bit of a video. If anybody wants to look at my own social media platform on LinkedIn, they'll see that I've been using it for a while. So it's a really clever little tool, but a video can be scary for practices to start down this road, because there's the vision of the camera crew arriving in and the lights and Hollywood has arrived. We're not talking about that just yet. What you're trying to do here is create engaging content for your target audience to hear your message, to listen to you, for you to build up your profile with them in a true sense. Like, people do business with people that they know and they like and they trust. So it's really just a tool in the toolbox from a marketing point of view. So, but it's an important tool. I mentioned earlier on content. Content is usually a problem most practices have, going, where do I get content? How do I start? So content is king. And what I would say to you about content is think about what's happening in the marketplace, what events are happening, what's happening that is pertinent to your target audience. Like, when I'm doing something, you'll see me talking about it before I do it and after I do it. So pre and post event is clever. It's a clever way of just creating opportunities to engage with your target audience. If you are focused on a particular segment, a particular area, or a particular any particular service line that is getting kind of any kind of Google news coverage at the moment, don't forget to use your Google News alerts. They're really, really handy little tools. You can get emailed into your inbox as soon as a bit of coverage is written on your chosen topic, and you can share that with your audience then through social media with some commentary of your own. So, like, use the tools that are there, create a list. I would say work on a basis of 2 or 3 weeks ahead and really, really get focused on it.
So Mary, we're moving into the last minute or two of the session. So I don't know whether you want to just kind of.
I'll wrap up really quickly. What I'll say, guys, is if you are spending on marketing at the moment, if you're spending on any subscription tools, make sure that you are reviewing them regularly, particularly now. What was a good idea last November might not be quite such a good idea now in terms of monthly payments for tools that you're not altogether using. So think carefully about your marketing spend, but certainly engage with external experts where you need them. Measure what you do. And what I'd say to you is, this is very doable. Stay focused. It's a long game. Usually, like, busyness is usually what stops people doing this. So I'd say focus on what you want to do and do one thing at a time. Don't try to do everything, but just do one thing at a time and build your profile out to that market. Justin, I'll pass over to you.
Thank you. So there's some of the resources. Mary, thanks a million for giving your time today. If anyone's any quick questions, we'll just take them in the chat very quickly. We're going to send out the resources, the slides to everyone. We'll send out the Law Society Practice logo also, and we'll send out an audio of this recording. There's some really good tips there. Let me just promote our own small practice hub, growing your business. So if you go to the website, the link there's some really good useful tools around networking, around marketing, etc. And we'll be adding to this toolkit as we go forward. And just maybe a little bit about next week then, Mary. the Road to Recovery number 3, and your digital footprint. So this is all going to be around your website and all of the marketing online digital tools that you can use to promote yourself. So a lot more detail.
Yep. We'll delve deep next week. Now, I've just given you a flavour of it this week because the marketing world has turned digital now. So, and it's really, really important because it comes back to how your audience is finding you.
Is there any other final questions there? So I'll just give you results of the last second poll that we ran there. Can you see that, Mary?
Nope, not yet.
So I'll end the polling and I'll show the results. So can you see that, Mary?
Yep, absolutely.
Yep.
Good. Practice management coming up. Great. Social media, legal matters, online network, business development. Great.
So business development seems to be the one where a lot of people are focused, but a really wide response there. So thank you very much, everybody, for participating. I'll just minimize that. Is that gone from the screen? Yeah. And sure, if you have any questions, you can contact myself directly at the Law Society, or Mary if you have any other particular questions yourself. So thank you very much for everybody for joining. Hopefully we'll see you next week, and have a good week. Slán.
Thanks a million all.
Thank you. Bye.